People often ignore and discount the disability vote. However, nationally, a projected 40.2 million people with disabilities were eligible to vote in the November 2024 elections, representing close to 1/6 of the total electorate. The disability vote is too big to ignore. We deserve to have a say in how our country is run. For too long, policy has been made about us, around us. We are the only ones with insights on how disability policy should be written. We have a right to be heard. And we are making our voices heard. In the 2022 midterm election, Virginia voters with and without disabilities voted at the same rate, 53.2%. Nationally, the voting gap between disabled and non-disabled voters shrank to 1.5%. We are here, and we are just as involved in elections as our non-disabled community members. Change is happening, and we will be a part of the future.
Good evening. I'm Tanya Milling, Executive Director of the ARC of Virginia. On behalf of the ARC and our 21 local chapters, we are honored to co-host this event with the Autism Society of Northern Virginia, the ARC of Northern Virginia, and Rev Up Virginia. I also want to extend a heartfelt thank you to our more than 40 statewide partners who joined together to support and promote this forum. Your collaboration shows the strength and unity of Virginia's disability community. This forum is a unique and vital opportunity. 1 in 5 Virginians lives with a disability, and people with disabilities and their families are directly impacted by the decisions made in state government. That's why it is essential that candidates for statewide office listen, learn, and share their vision with our community. I want to emphasize that the ARC of Virginia and our co-hosts are nonpartisan organizations. We do not endorse or oppose any candidates. Our role is to make sure that disability issues are visible, that every candidate hears directly from the community, and that voters with disabilities have the information they need to make their decisions at the ballot box. It is not lost on us that candidates are giving their time tonight in a format that is not typical. With limited questions directed to them, they are also here to listen and learn. That commitment matters, and we are grateful to each of you for recognizing the importance of disability issues in our Commonwealth. We are here because disability issues are people issues. They touch every family, every community, and every part of our state. Tonight is about making sure those issues are part of the conversation. So thank you for being here. I will now hand it over to Connor Cummings to share his perspective on tonight's event.
My name is Connor Cummings. I am a self-advocate and proud to be autistic. Please remember that this is a sensory-friendly forum. This is not a debate. Talk about what you can and have done for individuals and families with disabilities. Share your disability experiences and plans if elected. Please concentrate only on you. Let the other candidates concentrate on themselves while you talk all about you. No speaking at the same time or interrupting each other. No raised voices and no name calling. Thank you for respecting the sensory-friendly instructions. Not following these instructions can give me pain, and then I can no longer listen or understand. This is your opportunity to answer our questions and to hear our stories, not just today, but every day you are in office. To all of you watching, these candidates are here because they care. Thank you for being here to respectfully listen to all candidates. This is our opportunity to hear their disability platform, to help ensure that our representatives include us in their decision making, not just mentioned, but a seat at the table. November 4th or prior, you can vote for the candidates that you feel are best for your needs and supports. Remember to always vote. Our voice matters. To all candidates, please turn off your cameras when you're not speaking. Now, here is Tonya to start our 2025 statewide candidate forum with a disability community. Thank you.
Thank you, Connor. Tonight we have two moderators who will be guiding our discussion, and I will serve as your timekeeper. When there are 15 seconds left for a response, I will appear on screen and play a light sound to help us stay on track. We are grateful to have two outstanding moderators with us this evening, Nicole Davis and Shay Ruff. Nicole will begin tonight's conversation.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to 1 in 5, a statewide candidate virtual forum with the disability community. My name is Nicole Davis, and I will be one of your moderators for this evening. I'm the Executive Director of the Independence Center, which is a center for independent living in Norfolk. I also serve as the Secretary of the Virginians Association of Centers for Independent Living. I'm a Hispanic woman with long brown hair, wearing black glasses and a white and gray sweater. I'm honored to be joined this evening by my co-moderator, Shay Ruff. She is the lead trainer of the ARC of Virginia. Shay is an African-American woman with brown eyes and black hair. She is a wheelchair user, wears glasses, and is wearing a pink sweater. Together, we will be guiding tonight's forum and ensuring that our voices and perspectives remain at the center of this important conversation. Tonight, we are joined by the candidates for the office of Governor, Lieutenant Governor, and Attorney General in the Commonwealth of Virginia. This forum is an opportunity for candidates to share their perspectives, highlight their past work on issues important to people with disabilities, and outline their policy priorities if elected. The title of tonight's event, 1 in 5, reminds us that 1 in 5 Virginians identify as a person with a disability. Collectively, this community has the power to shape elections, influence public policy, and drive progress towards a more inclusive and accessible future. Each candidate will begin with opening remarks, followed by a series of questions, and then a closing statement. Our goal is to provide a respectful, informative, and engaging conversation that gives the disability community the opportunity to hear directly from those who seek to serve in a statewide office. With that, I'd like to invite each of our candidates to begin with their opening remarks. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for their opening statements, and we'll begin with Lieutenant Governor Earl Sears. Thank you.
All right, this is Sharon Cummings. I just wanted, if somebody could call me, just so that I know that Winston got on a few minutes late, and I just want to make sure she's ready for all of the instructions that Connor had given. Okay, thank you. Bye.
You're gonna take the blind.
Lieutenant Governor, if you're ready, you can come off mute and please provide your opening statements.
Okay, think I'm off. Can you hear me? Can you hear me, everyone?
Yes, sir, we can.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. First of all, thank all of you for having me here, and thanks as well for these opening comments. You know, the ARC, Rev Up Virginia, and Autism Society of Virginia represents the best of us. And I have met quite a few of you, whether you've come to see me here or to see your legislators here during session, or I have visited with you elsewhere. And I tell you, it's always good to hear from you, because as my grandmother always said, he who feels it knows it. And you're the ones who are experiencing it. And so you're telling us what you want to have happen. So you know how we can serve you better. And we want you to continue to tell us that, because if I'm working on something and it's not going to help you, then I need to know that and I need to stop and do it differently. So I'm very proud, I should say, of what our administration has accomplished with respect to disability rights. I helped Governor Youngkin get 18 bills passed through the General Assembly to safeguard your rights, the rights of Virginians with disabilities. We've added, for example, $247 million for 3,440, I believe, new waiver slots. We've added another 574 million in our DD ID waivers through Right Help Right Now. And I know a little bit about that because my family has experienced issues in this field and needed a lot of help. We've had increased participation access to public body meetings by ensuring voting rights and remote access for people with disabilities. We've expanded definitions of disability rights even. That's important. And we've increased law enforcement communication and de-escalation training for individuals with disabilities. Now, each of these accomplishments and more have been made and have made Virginia a better, safer place for those of us who have disabilities. So there's still much more to be done. It's never enough. And even more opportunities will present itself, which you will tell me what they are. So that's why I'm running for governor. And I hope that through our Q&A, we're going to touch on some of these priorities, and that will help guide my time in office. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Now I'd like to invite Congresswoman Spanberger to share her opening remarks. You also have 2 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Abigail Spanberger, and I'm running to earn your vote to serve as your next governor of Virginia. I want to say thank you to the ARC of Virginia for hosting this forum, and thank you to everyone with us this evening for your work to make sure that Virginians with disabilities are set up to thrive across our communities. As a member of Congress, I was grateful to both get to know about your work and to help realize the promise of the Americans with Disabilities Act. At the federal level, that work included supporting early intervention programs that are critical to helping children participate in family and community life. But when we look within our communities, I know that beyond your advocacy, many of you have had to figure out how to get your loved ones the best care possible, how to navigate a system that is challenging. And you might even be a caregiver yourself, which is a full-time job. As Virginia's next governor, I will work to make sure that Virginians have the options to care for their loved ones at home, make sure that caregivers are fairly compensated, and make sure all Virginians have access to safe, quality care. But supporting our neighbors with disabilities goes beyond connecting them with care. Supporting our neighbors means connecting them with the education, the workforce training, and the job opportunities that will set them up for success. Supporting our neighbors means improving access to safe housing that is affordable to them, because Virginians with disabilities deserve to live with the same opportunities and be treated with the same respect as any Virginian. And that includes how we speak about our neighbors. The words we use matter. And when someone in our lives is using disrespectful or derogatory terms, we should speak up and remind them to show respect for all neighbors. As Virginia's next governor, I look forward to working with you all to make sure that every Virginian will be connected and a successful member of our community. Thank you for inviting me to participate this evening. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Next, I'd like to invite Senator Hashmi to please deliver your opening remarks as well. Thank you.
Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for this opportunity to connect with all of our wonderful organizers. I really appreciate the ARC of Virginia, the ARC of Northern Virginia, Rev Up Virginia, and the Autism Society of Virginia for hosting this forum and this opportunity to speak to an issue that is so central and important to the lives of many, many families, including my own. I am Ghazala Hashmi, and I am the state senator representing the 15th senatorial district, which is parts of City of Richmond and Chesterfield County. I'm also the chair of the Senate Education and Health Committee. I'm in my second term now in the state Senate and have been honored to work on many of the issues that are critically important to the folks on this call this evening. And I'll just highlight a few of those areas of concerns. When I joined the Virginia Senate in 2020, I asked to be placed on the Virginia Disability Commission so that I could work on the issues, the legislation, the budget priorities that impact so many families. And a large part of the reason why I asked to serve on the Disability Commission was because of the work that I did in the community college system for over 18 years. You know, a lot of my students were students who requested accommodations of various sorts, and we worked really hard to ensure that every student in Virginia had access to educational opportunities. And as a result of that work, I not only joined the Virginia Disability Commission, but I have also served for 4 years as a board member for the Virginia School for the Deaf and Blind. And I've worked on legislation that has had impact on so many different families, including language access legislation, which includes accommodations for ASL, making sure that we have translators in all of our state agencies, and opportunities for everybody to receive the care and the services that they need. I also work very closely on Lead K legislation, ensuring that we have early intervention, language access for children who are deaf or hard of hearing, so that their academic skills are in a position to be able to develop properly. And, you know, working with one of my colleagues in the House of Delegates, we work to ensure that the Virginia Code is updated in its language and terminology, removing the word handicap so that we can address all individuals with disability in a fitting and proper manner all
Thank
throughout
you,
the
Senator.
code.
Thank
Thank you
you,
so
Senator.
much.
Mhm.
Thank you so much, Senator. Next, I'll turn it over to Mr. Reed. The floor is yours for 2 minutes, sir.
You are very kind. I appreciate it. Hello, everyone. My name is John Reed. I am a native Richmonder, native Virginian, and some of you may have watched me years ago as a television reporter. I covered some of these issues extensively at the ABC television station in Richmond. And since then, in my work as a broadcaster, I've tried to use my platforms to draw attention to many of the charitable groups and organizations that provide support for this community, like the Virginia Voice and others. So I'm delighted to be with you tonight. I want to thank the organizers for putting this together and drawing this attention. It's very rare that you have all 6 statewide candidates in the same room at the same time, much less on a Zoom call. So thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to do that. And thanks to the volunteers and the activists, state agencies, and the charitable groups that make this work. I'm the son of public school educators. My father was a principal. My mother was an elementary school teacher. Throughout my life, I've heard them talking about the struggles of students and adults who needed a little bit of extra assistance without robbing them of their dignity so that they could learn and compete and succeed with other students and other people in society. For me, talking about independence and opportunity in just a talking point, it's a responsibility for those of us who want to be in public service and leadership. And I'd like to give you briefly 3 things that I'd like to do. Safety and preparedness that include people with disabilities before disaster strikes. I know that has been stressed to me that it's very important after some of the incidents we've seen in recent years to address those issues. Number 2, schools and workforce pathways that meet students where they are, with real choices for families and meaningful employment for adults with disabilities. And third, a government that's transparent, responsive, and accountable, especially when it comes to services that people rely on every day. As Lieutenant Governor, I will not be putting in legislation, but you can count on me to use the gavel and the bully pulpit, something that I'm pretty adept at, to try to draw attention to the issues that you care about and to listen very carefully to what your priorities are. And I hope that at the end of this hour and a half, and as you make your decision about who you're going to vote for, you will give me the opportunity to serve. Thanks for having me tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Now we'll hear from Delegate Jones. You have 2 minutes, sir.
Well, thank you to the ARC, Rev Up, and the Autism Society for having me here tonight and for the work that you do every day to advocate for Virginians with disabilities and their families. As Attorney General, protecting and defending Virginians' civil and constitutional rights and ensuring that no Virginian is discriminated against will be a top priority for me. Right now, we're all bracing for the impact of the big bill, which will make it even harder for Virginians with disabilities who are enrolled in Medicaid, for example, to get the specialized care that they need and place undue burdens on millions who need it the most. Earlier this year, we saw what happens when attorneys general across the country put politics ahead of people and threaten to undermine federal laws like the Americans with Disabilities Act, which protects millions of Americans from discrimination. And Virginians can't afford that kind of partisan attack on their rights. As your next Attorney General, I'll defend and strengthen access to care. One way of doing this will be expanding and empowering the Office of Attorney General's Civil Rights Division to combat discrimination in employment, housing, policing, and education to ensure equal opportunity for disabled Virginians. I'll work to ensure that state agencies and local governments comply with state laws so that Virginians with disabilities and their caretakers and their families get the services, accommodations, and opportunities that they deserve. And most importantly, I'll be an Attorney General who listens to advocates, to families, and to you all on this Zoom tonight. This is your experience, and I know that you know better than anybody what you need to make your community more successful and more able as we move forward. And the solutions that we craft must be informed by your lived experiences and those who are affected. So I just say thank you again, and I look forward to sharing more about how we can work together to make Virginia a better place over these next 4 years.
Thank you, Delegate Jones. And now we'll turn it over to Attorney General Miyares. You have 2 minutes for your opening remarks.
It is so great to be with you all. I know some of you all I've worked with dating back to when I was in the General Assembly, also working with Autism Speaks and the Virginia Autism Foundation. And I like to say, as Attorney General, I view my role as the top law enforcement officer of the state as the people's protector. That absolutely means protecting Virginians' everyday civil rights. I'm so proud of the work our Office of Civil Rights has done, protecting students from discrimination, protecting those getting the largest housing discrimination verdict in the history of the Office of the Attorney General against those that discriminate against our fellow Virginians in housing. I also been proud of working with our friends and champions in the autism community launching the Blue Envelope program, because as we've noted, it is a terrifying moment. And so many parents shared with me when their child is interacting with law enforcement to be able to have a tool to provide the law enforcement so they could be aware of the specific challenges that specific child may have to make sure it's de-escalated by nature. But listen, if communities aren't safe, nothing else matters. And I'm proud of the work we've done in the Attorney General's office, making sure all of our communities are safe across Virginia. When I took office, our murder rate was at a 20-year high. Our violent crime rate was at a 30-year high. Our addiction death rate was the highest we'd ever seen. And I'm so proud of the work we have done in the Attorney General's office, being that people's protector, to make sure we have safe communities. We have worked with law enforcement instead of against law enforcement to make sure they have the tools they need. We launched Operation Ceasefire, which is both intervention, prevention, and prosecution to make sure our most violent criminals are not on our streets and not in our neighborhoods victimizing more Virginians. And we've seen a remarkable turnaround. Our violent crime rate is down, our murder rate is down. We've had an incredible drop in our addiction death rate as well. So I'm proud to be the people's protector, protecting your civil rights and protecting your community. It's an honor to be your Attorney General. Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you. And I want to thank all of our candidates for your opening remarks. We're now going to shift over to my co-moderator, Shay Ruff, who will begin with some of the questions for this portion of the session. Thank you.
This question is for candidates for governor. Medicaid is a critical source of coverage for about 1.4 million Virginians, including people with disabilities. Recent federal proposals could cut Virginia's Medicaid funding by as much as 21% over the next decade. Here in Virginia, the General Assembly made historic progress last year by fully funding Priority 1, giving thousands of families access to developmental disability waiver services. Advocates are now concerned that the federal cuts could undermine that hard-fought success.
Leave it.
The impact wouldn't stop there. Many caregivers and direct support professionals also rely on Medicaid for their own health coverage. Without it, the very workforce that people with disabilities and their families depend on would be at risk, creating a domino effect that could destabilize services across the state. If elected, what steps would you take to protect Medicaid and safeguard Virginians with disabilities and their caregivers? Congresswoman Spanberger, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you so much. First, let me be clear about how devastating this bill will be for Virginia. Because of this bill, we know that more than 350,000 Virginians covered by Medicaid, Medicare, and the marketplace through the ACA are at risk of losing their coverage. Virginia's hospitals stand to lose more than $26 billion over 14 years. That means there will be cuts to services. Safety net hospitals will feel the brunt of the impact. And we know that at least 6 rural hospitals, including 1 in Hampton Roads, 1 in Northern Neck, 4 in Southwest and South Side, are at risk of closing their doors because of the so-called One Big Beautiful Bill. And as governor, I will use every resource at the Commonwealth's disposal to mitigate the devastating impacts of this reckless, terrible, damaging bill, and to protect Virginians who rely on Medicaid, including individuals with disabilities and their caregivers. I will use every resource at my disposal to protect Virginians' healthcare, including working with the General Assembly, the Attorney General, and defending safety net providers like rural hospitals, community health centers, and free clinics. I will also be focused on keeping Virginians covered by investing in modernizing our state systems that currently have a significant backlog, and investing in additional administrative support to ensure that people can navigate the new, more burdensome system and requirements for Medicaid eligibility. I will never stop working to ensure that the voices of Virginians with disabilities and the people who care for them are supported and heard. I believe that Virginians with disabilities deserve the freedom of choice in their care, and that is why, as governor, I will continue to invest in high-quality waiver services like Medicaid DD waivers to bring down the waitlist and improve access to care. I will also ensure that we continue to disregard Social Security disability insurance income when determining financial eligibility for waiver services to ensure that no Virginians in need are locked out of the needed services. And finally, to ensure that every Virginian can see a provider when they need it, I will also invest in the pipeline of providers who serve Virginians with disabilities, from caregivers to direct support professionals to the doctors specializing in care, so that no Virginian falls through the cracks. The circumstances and the impacts that we expect to see facing Medicaid because of this law that was signed on July 4th is significant. The impacts will be catastrophic, but as governor, I will work to mitigate every harm that will be created by this bill.
Thank you. I'll add a few seconds as well.
Lieutenant Governor Earl Sears, you also have 2 minutes.
Lieutenant Governor, we can't hear you. Oh, thank you.
Okay.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes, there you are. I'm sorry. So let me start again. I think all my life I have worked to serve people. I started a men's prison ministry. I led it for 2 years, one of the best things I've done with my life. I had a homeless shelter that I ran for the Salvation Army for women and their children. And so what I'm telling you is I have been in the trenches with people who have needed the services of government, who have needed every help that they could get. I am not about to take anything away. I am here to help. That's all I've ever tried to do. And so when I know that those in our communities need help, I'm going to be there. I want to allay some of your fears. As we've talked about, we've put so many different waiver slots in place. We didn't do that only to take it away. We're not working in vain, and we're not trying to make anyone's life any harder. And I don't want you to believe that at all. Now, you've heard money thrown around, 240 some billion dollars, but think about it. They're talking about over 14 years. 14 years, that's how they come up with such a huge number. But let me tell you what I do know to be true, and it is this, that Medicaid is going to what it was always intended to for those who are able-bodied. And for those who are able to work, what we're saying is, according to the bill, is that you must either be looking for work or be in training or even be volunteering yourself in some capacity to serve the community. And that's all we're saying. All the bill is saying anyway, for 40 hours. Most of us work 80 hours. And in fact, when I was director of the Women's Homeless Shelter, I was driving people to their jobs. I was driving them to training. I was driving them to get an application because I wanted them to have better lives. And so, despite what anybody may be saying, I don't want you to think that what we have is going away. It is only for those who are able-bodied. That's number one. Number two, we have about $500 million right now that we have access to that can help our various communities. Then we have another access to another $500 million that we have access to. And furthermore, in our budget, we have put monies in to stave off any issues that we saw coming down the pike from the federal government, $1 billion. So right now we're talking about $2 billion to help. And remember, you're not going to have issues where you're going to have Medicaid taken from you if you are not able-bodied. And I want to, for example, do a one-stop shop for all things Medicaid. I think the last thing you want to do when you're trying to find help is to have to go through a lot of hoops. I am not here for that. I've come back into politics after being gone for 20 years to make life better, to make our government more accountable, and that's to be more transparent. We're going to have specific caseworkers to help people with disabilities and any other resource that they need to understand and comply with the updated requirements if any are required. The point here is to prevent you from falling through the cracks. That's why we're here. And as your governor, I will see to it. I will continue to be accessible. How else do I know to serve unless I am among you, not from above you? I thank you for your support.
This question is for candidates for Attorney General. People with disabilities are arrested and incarcerated far out of proportion with their numbers in the population, with nearly 40% of state prisoners reporting at least one disability. This is especially true for people with developmental and mental health disabilities, and even more so for people of color with disabilities. What policy changes or initiatives would you pursue to work towards effectively diminishing this horrific trend? Attorney General Miyares, you have 2 minutes.
Listen, as I said, as a people's protector, that absolutely means protecting individuals' civil rights and also making sure, as I have been as Attorney General, the Department of Correction adheres both to the Americans with Disability Act and the Virginians with Disability Act. And so I'm proud to be able to say that VDOC, at every single Virginia Department of Correction facility, there is a designated ADA coordinator that actually is there on site to assist with both grievances and requests regarding disability concerns. That happens right now at our current Department of Corrections facility. Because one thing we have realized is one size does not fit all, that you have to have individuals on site able to attune to the individual challenges with those that are dealing with either intellectual or developmental disabilities. And to be clear, as Attorney General, I recognize that they have certain rights, obviously, as well, to have reasonable and appropriate support and accommodations, treatment and education. I want to be clear as well, when Governor Youngkin took office, he launched the Right Help Right Now initiative, which is this idea that if you're dealing with a mental health challenge at that moment, we want you to get the help that you so desperately need. And there's really several pillars of that, but one of which is same-day care. We don't want you to have to wait. We obviously want to reduce the criminalization of behavioral health, but also it's about developing more capacity, targeted support for substance abuse disorders and efforts to prevent overdoses as well. And so we have been diligent with our work in the Attorney General's office and the civil rights to make sure that your rights, your civil rights don't go away just because you are incarcerated. That's actually when you are most protected under our civil rights provisions. So I'm proud of my job as a people's protector and appreciate the discussion. Thank you.
Delegate Jones, you have 2 minutes.
Well, every American and certainly every Virginian deserves and is entitled to equal treatment under the law. I learned this from my parents and my grandparents who lived through segregation and committed their entire lives to make our Commonwealth a more just and fair place. Every Virginian must have their civil rights respected, full stop. And we have to tackle this challenge from multiple fronts. And in particular, we need to ensure that law enforcement has the tools and training needed to understand and effectively handle situations involving people with disabilities. And as I outlined in my public safety plan, which we released a few weeks ago, I'll push to expand Marcus Alert grants to place more mental health crisis responders on the ground to work with officers in mental health or substance abuse crises. Seeking to safely diffuse potentially dangerous situations and keep both Virginians and law enforcement safe is my ultimate priority. And I was proud to vote for and support the Marcus Alert program and its creation when I was in the General Assembly, because we recognized that we had to be dynamic, responsive, and nimble in responding to the challenges that we saw in our communities. And what is most important for me is that I will always have an open door to hear from your community on ways that we can improve fairness in public safety. I don't think that those two things are mutually exclusive. And as I said in my opening remarks, I'll be an attorney general who listens, who advocates, to families, and to you all, and to be your advocate, whether it be in the legislature or in the community or elsewhere, because the solutions that we come up with have to be informed by the lived experiences of the people who are most impacted, and that's you. And so I'm proud of my track record working alongside this community in the General Assembly to make great strides and bring our code up to a place where we can be proud of. And I look forward to working alongside all of you shoulder to shoulder to make it a more fair and just place for the disabled community, especially when it comes to our interactions with law enforcement.
This question is for candidates for Lieutenant Governor. Climate change is intensifying the frequency and duration of disasters in Virginia. People with disabilities are disproportionately impacted by disasters, during which they are 2 to 4 times more likely to die or be injured. Yet, they are often excluded from disaster preparedness planning, response, and recovery. What will you do to make sure disabled Virginians have full access to programs and resources before, during, and after disasters, including public health emergencies? Mr. Reed, you have 2 minutes.
Well, this is a very important question, and it's one that I've got some experience with because, as I mentioned at the onset, my entire career in television was covering really bad things when they happen. So when everybody else got to stay home, I was one of the reporters who was back in the studio or, in many cases, out on the street, seeing the deadly consequences often of disasters and how it impacted people. And what you've said as a part of your introduction is something that I witnessed firsthand, that people who have disabilities are often the victims of these situations. I've also been fortunate to work with a number of leaders who have impressed upon me in this circumstance and in other circumstances, you can't go back and pre-plan. When I worked for President Reagan in California, there were always major catastrophic issues in a state as big as California. When I worked for Senator Allen in the U.S. Senate, there were regular problems, and being on the forefront of thinking about how different groups of citizens may have to deal with these are pretty important. So let me share with you the before, during, and after ideas that I would like to implement and work with government to execute. I want to make sure that we bake in solutions on the front end, in the rehearsals, in the drills that are done with all of the state agencies. We need an access first preparedness standard for every state and local plan out there. Disability advisory councils that give information to those who are crafting these plans in advance. Put them at the table, have inventories of accessible shelters, generators. Refrigeration for meds has been expressed to me as a big concern. Durable medical equipment, and an opt-in, not forced to do it, 211 registry that tells rescuers and those who will be dealing on the ground where you are and how to try to help you, so that is already a part of the plan. During it, execution matters, require real-time accessible alerts in a bunch of different formats. Not everybody has the same cell phone or the same service or even access to the internet if this is going on. Deploy state-managed accessible transportation contracts so that you're not stranded and you can move as needed, and use cross-trained teams drawn from EMS public health staff to take care of these issues. And then after, recovery has to restore independence. And we need to work on making sure that you're not left trying to navigate bureaucracy to get back to normal after a disaster occurs. I think it's really important. I also think it is something that we can achieve together. And I look forward to working with Republicans and Democrats to try to achieve this. Surely we can find common ground here and not argue amongst ourselves and not be belligerent, but find a way to make this work. Thank you.
Senator Hoshman, you have 2 minutes.
Well, thank you so much for this really important question. Ensuring that disabled Virginians are fully included in all the phases of emergency preparedness and response isn't just a matter of public policy, it's actually a matter of civil rights as well as equity. And so some of the key areas in which I plan to work is to push for the integration of accessibility into every stage of disaster planning, whether it's the initial design of emergency alerts or transportation, shelter access, as well as healthcare services. And that means that we make sure all emergency communications are available in multiple accessible formats, including ASL language interpretation, captioning, screen reader compatible text, as well as plain language. And secondly, I want to make sure that our Disability Commission, on which I've been serving now for 6 years, that we make sure that we prioritize this issue in the next session and that we develop concrete legislative proposals. I also plan to strengthen the coordination across state agencies as well as our local emergency management divisions to ensure that all shelters are fully accessible with trained staff as well as reliable backup power for medical equipment, which is so essential for so many individuals for life-saving purposes, and as well as access to personal care attendants where they're needed. These are such important and life life-saving measures that we need to prioritize. And finally, we need to build resilience by addressing the long-term public health and infrastructure inequities that too often leave disabled communities more vulnerable in the first place. And these are issues such as lack of accessible housing, lack of reliable transportation, as well as broadband access, which provides critical telehealth and emergency alerts. All of these measures are about ensuring that when crisis strikes, no Virginian is left behind, especially not our friends and families with disabilities. Thank you.
I'm going to do my very best as we go into our next two sections because we have two more rounds. So I'm going to try to keep us on track a little bit tighter, all right? Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. Our next question is for the candidates for Attorney General. In Virginia, being placed under guardianship permanently removes the right to vote for disabled Virginians unless the court order specifically provides voting rights. How do you recommend Virginia protect the voting rights of disabled citizens who have had their right to vote removed due to guardianship? We'll start with you, Delegate Jones. You have 2 minutes.
Well, Virginia is one of only 7 states that still outright bars this right completely. And I have spent my entire career working to protect and expand the right to the franchise. I sit across the dinner table from people who were denied the right to vote simply because of the color of their skin. And I have long believed that voting is what makes us special, not just as Virginians, but as Americans. It's what sets us apart from places across the globe. And so putting all of our energy and effort and time and resources into making sure that the right to franchise is afforded to people who are here is important. And so as Attorney General, I will support and advocate for legislation in the General Assembly that ensures that there are clear and consistent processes in place to protect voting rights of Virginians under guardianship. That means implementing appropriate evaluations to determine an individual's capacity to vote. For example, cognitive assessments conducted by state agencies and local departments of social services. Because individuals under guardianship are already subject to yearly reporting requirements, I believe that their voting eligibility should be reviewed during that process, with the circuit court reassessing whether their right to vote can and should be restored. No Virginian should lose the opportunity to participate in our democracy without regular, meaningful review. And because this is such a personal issue to me, and I was so supportive of the Virginia Voting Rights Act that passed in 2020, I think this is just a natural extension of that. And I look forward to using the full weight of our office as Attorney General to make sure that we rectify this problem, work towards a solution, and make Virginia the most accommodating place for people to vote.
Thank you. Now we'll go to Attorney General Miyares. You have 2 minutes as well.
Well, I am a passionate believer that your vote is your voice. And this is very personal for me. My mother came from a country where she had no voice. She lived under a regime where there was no consent of the governed. And I have such distinct memories as a child first seeing my mother take that oath of citizenship to America. But the utter pride she had when she took us with her, that she was not able to cast her first ballot to determine who the leader of her country was until she was 36 years old. And I was actually able to go with her then to that voting experience when she was able to cast her first ballot. I think that was an incredible moment that I saw in her early age, and the pride she had that for the first time she was able to have that voice. So we're very proud in our office, the Civil Rights Office here in the Attorney General's, of making sure your voice is always heard and protecting your precious right to vote. Now, I know that if someone is not of the right mind to vote, what must occur currently in Virginia is they have to have a formal court hearing. There must always be a guardian representing the interests of the individual. And there has to be, and something I fully support, periodic reviews after that determination is made. But there's also a fast-tracked acceleration option. So if there are concerns that someone's having that voice denied, there are multiple options available. And finally, contact the Office of Civil Rights and the Attorney General's office. We have an incredible group of attorneys there. They do incredible work. They're incredible public servants. They know how important it is for me that Virginians have that voice, that they have that vote. And so if that is a concern of you, just go to ag.virginia.gov We'll be glad to assist you in making sure that your precious right to vote is always protected, is indeed your vote, your voice. It's a hallmark of who we are as a free people.
Thank you so much, both of you, for your responses. The next question is for the candidates for governor. People with disabilities are generally employed at much lower rates than the rest of the population, oftentimes considered underemployed, despite a desire for meaningful paid employment. The U.S. Department of Labor found that in 2024, unemployment was 3 times as high for people with disabilities than those without, despite years of data supporting the fact that investing in accessibility and opportunities in the workplace for people with disabilities produces excellent outcomes for both employers and employees. Can you share 1 or 2 ways that you believe we can increase employment opportunities for people with disabilities in Virginia, particularly in building pathways from school to employment? We'll start with you, Lieutenant Governor Earl Sears. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Can you see me? We can
hear you. We just can't see you at this time.
Okay. All right. There we go. There we go. Thank you. So I believe that work is more than a simple 9 to 5. I believe work is an essential component of life. Indeed, for some of us, it gives meaning and it provides support, discipline, and validation. And in everything that I've tried to do that to give validation to all peoples. Everyone is important. Everyone is very necessary. Everyone is, dare I say, I support everybody. When you're working, you're contributing to a marketplace of people and goods, and it affects every aspect of life. So one of the things I'd like to see is new training for those with disabilities so that you can gain the skills that are necessary for working. Training is where everything starts. We all need training, and it does no good for any of us to look down on the other because we're all valuable people. I will also rigorously enforce our anti-discrimination statutes to make sure that the discrimination that does take place, and I know it does, is rooted out completely. We must get rid of it. I understand that because I remember that my dad came to America at the height of the civil rights movement. And as Dr. King said, we must root out inequality everywhere. I'd work with you, those in the disability advocacy groups, to design a series of reforms and potentially bring forth new legislation to help in the fight against discrimination and inequality. As I said, I'm counting on you to tell me what's working for you, what's not working for you, what can we tweak? You're doing it right, but if you did it this way, it would work better. Or this, what you're doing over here, it's not worth a hill of beans. Stop that. You're wasting money. You're wasting time. Do this over here. I need to hear that from you. I'd also like to see new tax credits for those who are employing people with disabilities. I think it's a good idea. We have to give incentives, I believe, so that we're trying to bring the whole workforce for those who want to work. Absolutely. And it could put less stress on employers. I'm sorry.
I said apologies. We need to move on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now we'll go to Congresswoman Spanberger. You have 2 minutes as well.
As governor, I will work to address the barriers to accessing employment services during and beyond high school to improve employment outcomes for Virginians with disabilities. And we know that earlier this year, the Virginia Board for People with Disabilities released a report with recommendations on solutions to improve access to pre-employment transition services during high school and competitive integrated employment after transitioning out of our school systems. As governor, I would direct my administration to work with the General Assembly on examining and implementing these recommendations specific to Virginia, specific to Virginians, and what we need to do here to ensure that the Virginia Department of Education and the Department of Aging and Rehabilitative Services are partnering to provide guidance to school divisions on ways to share information with parents of children in elementary school on career pathways for their kids, to build a collaborative network of DARS counselors and school divisions, and to collaborate on benefits trainings for parents prior to their child leaving school to ease that transition to employment, that transition to adulthood. And finally, I will also work to expand access to the Medicaid Works program to further reduce barriers to employment for Virginians with disabilities and allow them to work without losing access to care. Thank you so much, and I look forward to working with all of you to examine and then implement so many of the suggestions put forth in that study.
Thank you both for your responses. The next question is for candidates for Lieutenant Governor. Artificial intelligence, or AI, has the potential to expand access and inclusion for people with disabilities. However, AI industry members, advocates, and scholars have identified risk within the AI system and what it could pose for individuals with disabilities, including the risk of bias and discrimination, a lack of equitable access, and privacy concerns. How will you ensure the use of AI and other emerging technologies do not infringe on the rights and opportunities of Virginians with disabilities? And we'll start with you, Senator Hashmi. You have 2 minutes.
Well, thank you for that question. Artificial intelligence and its impacts on every facet of our life is an issue that I've been examining as a member of the Joint Commission on Technology and Science. And you're right, emerging technologies, and especially AI, have the power to empower, but they also carry some real risk of deepening the discrimination if we're not intentional about our efforts. And as a statewide leader, I will ensure that disability rights are front and center in the development and the deployment of AI all across Virginia. So just some concrete examples. First, I will advocate for a strong and enforceable standards that require accessibility to be built into all state-funded technology from the ground up, not as an afterthought. And that includes ensuring that AI that is used for hiring or housing, education, or healthcare decisions is rigorously audited first for bias against individuals with disabilities. And AI systems, as we know, often rely on historical data, and this historical data may actually reflect some ableist assumptions or systemic exclusion. And I will push to mandate transparency in how these systems are actually trained and how they're used. And I will push for a disability impact assessment for any AI system that is procured or deployed by state agencies. And additionally, I want to work to fund innovation centers. That's innovation that centers disabled voices, supporting tech development that is not only accessible, but co-designed with the disability community, whether it's assistive AI, smart home technology, or inclusive transportation. We should be investing in technology that enables opportunity and not restricts it.
Thank you so much. Now we'll go to Mr. Reed. You have 2 minutes.
Well, thank you. Can I tell you, first of all, I think technology should always open doors for people, not close them, whether it's your community or whether it's workers. I'm very concerned about where AI goes. What's interesting to me with this question, which was really surprising, because most people are a little behind on this issue. I did an entire series of it discussing AI with some of the top technicians in the country when I was back at the radio station. And it was one of our most downloaded series of interviews because people are trying to figure out how this is going to impact their lives. And when it comes to the government, we're still trying to navigate that. But you have identified in advance that accessibility and fairness needs to be a part of every program that the state issues a contract for. So I think it's important that we have accessibility by default in state procurement. State purchased tech going forward has to meet strong accessibility standards. and include user testing with people with disabilities. We shouldn't purchase this unless we're certain that that is already baked into the system. It's written into the code. Transparency for rights impacting government AI. If an algorithm affects benefits and hiring and education or housing, the agencies have to do a disability impact assessment and then publish the data about how the models are used and provide a human review so that AI isn't looking at AI. I think that human element to this and listening to people who are being impacted and not just looking at data that's been generated by a machine is important. And then privacy and data minimization. Look, all of us have sensitive health records, and we need to make sure that AI doesn't take over and start sharing that inappropriately. I think we can create innovation that allows independence, and we can monitor this with smart people in the room who are open to input from the citizens and the constituents and, quite frankly, the customers. Technology should open doors, not close them.
Thank you very much. I'm going to turn it back over to Shay for our next series of questions.
This question is for the candidates for governor. Affordable, accessible housing is extremely hard to find for people with disabilities, especially when so many disabled people are underemployed, consequently leaving many disabled individuals with no other alternative than to remain living in institutional settings or even become homeless. What would you do to increase accessible, affordable housing to ensure more disabled Virginians are not forced into or don't have the option to leave? Congresswoman Spanberger, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you so much. As I mentioned in my opening statements, it's so important that individuals with disabilities deserve and have choices in the care, including where they live, who they live with, and who supports them. Have choices in the care that they are receiving and the living circumstances that they're living in. Every Virginian deserves a safe place to live and sleep at night, and that's why I will work to ensure access to safe, affordable housing for Virginians, all Virginians, but particularly Virginians with disability. As governor, I will support DVHDS's state rental assistance program to ensure individuals who want to live in their communities are able to do so. I will also work to prevent individuals with disabilities from experiencing homelessness by increasing funding to DHCD's only eviction prevention program, the Virginia Eviction Reduction Pilot, to expand its reach to vulnerable individuals and to the Virginia Housing Trust Fund, which supports homeless service providers across the Commonwealth and provides funding for affordable and special needs housing. As governor, I will work to improve the protections that we have for renters by extending the timeline before a landlord can begin eviction proceedings from 5 days to 14 days to allow people to get their next paycheck, to get themselves a bit more steady before being evicted. We know that eviction can so frequently lead to longer-term homelessness, and we must cut that process off. And finally, I will strengthen Virginia's fair housing protections to prevent discrimination in housing by strengthening and prioritizing the Virginia Fair Housing Office to reinforce anti-discrimination laws and health and safety standards. And I will work with the Attorney General's Office of Civil Rights to crack down on predatory actors. Before I ever ran for public office, I served on Virginia's Fair Housing Board, and I know the essential work that board and that office do.
Lieutenant Governor Earl Sears, you also have 2 minutes.
Yes, thank you. This is an issue that's important to me, as you can imagine, because I said that I was the director of a homeless shelter for women and children. And the way to make affordable housing, accessible housing, is through increasing the supply. That's really simple. More housing, more supply, more availability to rent, to buy, to do whatever it is, to roommate situations, whatever. Virginia is in a real housing shortage right now. More than 300 units are necessary. I'm looking at what other states are doing. For example, what is North Carolina doing? And they are able to bring housing to the market much, much quicker than we are. And that's because they have gotten rid of useless regulations that continue to haunt us because it takes so many days to till the first bit of ground, so many days to get the map guide, so many days to get the permits. You know, in Richmond, it takes about it's $94,000 that the house is before the first shovel of dirt is moved. In Northern Virginia, it's about 155,000. Even in the Southwest, I'm hearing that there are issues because some of our laws are more geared to housing supply in Northern Virginia, and unfortunately, it's affecting the rest of Virginia. So there's a whole lot of reform that needs to happen when it comes to zoning laws and codes that restrict free market. So I'm going to make sure we also allow more accessory units that allow the elderly and people who have disabilities to live on the premises of family members, which is often restricted. I'm going to release the valve on our permit pipeline right now, again, 5 to 8 months to get permitting. We're going to cut through regulations. We've already cut about 27% of our state's regulations. It's costing a house about around $24,000. Imagine what we could do with that extra $24,000. We're going to need targeted solutions for Virginians with disabilities, and this will include, I think, vouchers, tax credits, reexamining SRAP. And let me say something about some of these laws that you're hearing. 14 extra days. You know what will happen? Landlords will not rent. They will find other ways to do so, which will further decrease, because what they're thinking is they have to make the mortgage payment. And how will they do that? So we've got to make sure that both sides of the aisle, both sides of the equation, the one who wants to rent and the landlord, have opportunities that they can coexist. Otherwise, if you make it hard for a landlord to rent, the house will go away. There are ways to be kind, and this is not one of them. It will take away solutions from you. We cannot go down that road. Thank you.
Thank you.
This question is for candidates for Attorney General. As changes occur at the Federal Department of Education, we anticipate that complaint resolution related to Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, performance of federal monitoring of the implementation of the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, and monitoring of local schools will fall more heavily to the Virginia Department of Education. What suggestions do you have for the Commonwealth to perform these functions that may no longer be conducted adequately by the U.S. Department of Education? Attorney General Miyares, you have 2 minutes.
Well, listen, I know there is a lot of speculation, and just for everybody on the call to be aware that the two principal entities at the federal level that deal with discrimination in education are both the Department of Education Civil Rights Division and the Department of Justice Civil Rights Division. And so I know there's some speculation that perhaps we'll be moving roughly the same number of attorneys over to DOJ. So the practice won't end. It'll just be with DOJ. Some people have argued that it's duplicative. Either way, I'm confident there's still going to be a heavy, robust role in the federal government to make sure that Section 504 plans remain robust and protected. As one parent shared with me, that is a lifeline for my child, because what it says is any entity receiving federal funds cannot discriminate based on a child's disability. And it is so critically important because I said before, one size does not fit all. Section 504 is one of the single most critical components to make sure that our students are actually protected so they can grow and learn. Not in any way the same as a Section 504, but a little bit of that experience is my own as a parent. I have a daughter that has dealt with an IEP plan, and I know the frustration dealing with bureaucracy. Why is it taking so long? Why can't we get some answers? So I know how critical it is, and it's what I've said as Attorney General being that people's protector, making sure that is protected. There are some changes we can do in Virginia with Virginia Human Rights Act to make sure that some of the protections that are happening with sovereign immunity on local education and local educational entities can be adjusted. There's been some proposals in the General Assembly. We'll have to see what is the end result. But what I primarily enforce in the Attorney General's office is the Virginia Human Rights Act. We're proud of our Office of Civil Rights protecting all Virginians. As I've noted, we're incredibly proud of the fact that we got the largest housing discrimination case in the history of Virginia in the Civil Rights Office. We will continue to be robust in protecting your child's civil rights. That absolutely means that lifeline, that critical lifeline of a Section 504 plan. We're going to be your voice and make sure that's protected.
Delegate Jones, you have 2 minutes.
Well, there is no question that in so many areas, from consumer protection to civil rights to public health safeguards to corporate law breaking, Virginia will have to step in where the Trump administration refuses to protect our citizens. The Attorney General is supposed to protect us from the excesses and overreach of the federal government, and also step in when there's a gap that must be filled to assist in the delivery of essential services. The Attorney General is also tasked with working tirelessly to protect and support our state agencies to the fullest extent possible. So let me be clear. Every Virginian deserves equal access to education, period. And I am, and always will be, supportive of processes at the state level to ensure that disabled students can learn and grow and receive the high quality education that we hope and aspire to provide for all of Virginia's children. And so I look forward to working with our next governor and the General Assembly to make sure that we don't have any gaps to fill. And then if we have to do that, we will do it quickly, we will do it efficiently, and we'll do it so that we can provide support to the disabled community in this space, just like we should in every facet of our day-to-day lives. So thank you all.
This question is for candidates for governor. As previously stated, people with disabilities are arrested and incarcerated far out of proportion with their numbers in the population, with nearly 40% of state prisoners reporting at least one disability. This is especially true for people with developmental and mental health disabilities, and even more so for disabled people of color. Today, Virginia is one of only 3 states whose constitutions permanently disenfranchise all people with felony convictions unless the governor reinstates their right to vote. Like a majority of Virginians, do you believe all qualified citizens should have access to the ballot, including those who have served their time for felony convictions? Lieutenant Governor Earl Sears, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. So I am the only immigrant who is running for office, the only naturalized citizen. I know what it looks like to have your rights taken away from you by the government for just willy-nilly. I know what it's like to be very afraid of your government you had no say in. I saw that as a 10-year-old growing up in another country. And as an immigrant again to this great country, I am breaking down barriers. I want government that's accountable to me. I want government that answers to the people. That's where I start. That's where I'll always be. And so the disabled community is no different to me. I'm going to make sure everybody has an opportunity to speak. And remember, I ran a men's prison ministry, so I'm looking for second chances. This is what I'm about. But I am not for maybe rapists, pedophiles, certain felonies. I don't think we're going to, look kindly on that. Now, other felonies, for sure, we'll take a look at. I want to hear from those communities who want to be sure that we have, restoration of rights. We want everybody to have a say in their government. This government of the people, by the people, for the people means something to me coming from another country. So barriers to entry and all of that is going to be a problem. I want to make us safer. I want to get rid of injustice. And so I'm going to get as much data as possible about how often this is happening to the disabled community. I want to hear from you. What reforms do you think we need to do? What are the situations that you are finding most likely that these are the problems that keep cropping up? And so I'm going to add new criteria that changes the process for felons with disabilities, for example, that accounts for those unique circumstances, those circumstances that especially were misunderstood. The person was misunderstood the whole way through, the person with disabilities. If we can get your record expunged, whatever it is, because of technicalities or whatever, we need to get that done, and we need to get it done quickly. Those who coerce you, they're going to hear from me. I am going to stand up for you. As your governor, I promise to do that.
Thank you.
Congresswoman Spanberger, you also have 2 minutes.
Thank you. I'd like to get back to the question, which is whether those who have served their time for felony convictions should have their rights restored. And we know that nearly 40% of state prisoners here in the Commonwealth of Virginia report at least one disability. And we know that Virginia is one of only 3 states whose constitutions permanently take away the right to vote of people with felony convictions unless the governor, one person, reinstates that right. I feel very strongly that Virginia must pass our constitutional amendment to automatically restore the rights of those who have served their time and who should have their rights reinstated. I am so grateful to the members of the General Assembly who have put this bill through, voted on it one time. They have to vote on it again in the new year. And importantly, in 2026, we will send it to the people. So this constitutional amendment should be put in place thanks to the good work of the members of the General Assembly and the people of Virginia. But importantly, as we are moving forward with this constitutional amendment, it will fall to Virginia's next governor. While we are waiting for that constitutional amendment to pass, it will fall to Virginia's next governor to continue to restore the rights of those who are eligible, not forcing people to wait until 2026 after that constitutional amendment passes. So as governor, while I will help campaign to see this constitutional amendment be put in place, automatically restoring people's rights to vote, people's right to use their voice, I will also ensure that for the beginning of my administration, until that amendment is passed, I will work tirelessly to ensure that every person who is eligible to have their rights restored sees their rights restored, because currently it requires the decision of one person, the governor, and when I am the governor, I will do that.
I want to thank all of our candidates for sharing their time, their perspective, and their policy ideas with us this evening. At this time, we'll move to closing remarks. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to share a final statement that highlights their vision and their commitment to Virginians with disabilities. We will proceed in the same order as the opening. So, Lieutenant Governor Earl Sears, you may begin with your 2-minute closing remarks.
Yes, ma'am. There I am. So thank you again for wanting to hear from us. Again, being from another country, this is not what we do. Generally, you don't hear from your constituency. You don't hear from the people that you want to represent. It's just not something that's done. And I'm always fascinated by the American system that says, no, you come and you talk to me. Tell me how you're going to govern. Tell me how you're going to serve me. Tell me what policies you're going to put in place. Tell me what laws I'm going to have to live under. How are you going to make my life harder or better? Are you going to leave it better than you found it? Are you going to come back and talk to me and ask me for the things that are necessary for me? Are you going to find out, am I doing it right? And some of the things that I've heard since I've been elected is when I go back and I speak to people, especially those who are disabled or in the community, I worry about my child. Who's going to take care of my child when I'm gone? I worry that I've left enough assets for my child, and I worry that somebody that I've left in charge won't steal it, especially if my child can't speak, if my child is just severely unable to help themselves. And then for those who are adults and they don't have family or family they can depend on, I hear from them, who can I turn to be sure that my assets aren't stolen, that I am not being abused, that the state sees me and will send somebody to come and rescue me when I need it, won't park me in a nursing home or something, so And so I hear all of that in everything that you're doing. And how dare we, as elected leaders, try to make you feel that we're going to take away, for example, your Medicaid? How dare we add to whatever issues that you're facing? I'm telling you now, according to the bill, the BBB, what it says is if you're able-bodied and you're on Medicaid, then you either have to have 40 hours in the whole month that you're either looking for work, that you're volunteering your services, or you're in training of some kind. That's all it says. And by the way, 70% of those currently on Medicaid are working in some capacity. The other 30% are not working because of various issues, and we know what they are. So I don't want you to think that everything you have is going to be lost if all you have is Medicaid. And as I said, we shouldn't add to that pain. And as governor, I'm going to ensure, because I've been doing it, I'm going to keep doing the work of coming to you. I want you to have access to housing. I want you to have access to work. I want you to have your voting rights back. I want that. I want you to win. I want you to not just survive, I want you to thrive. And so my policies will help everyone. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you so much, Lieutenant Governor. Next, Congresswoman Spanberger, please share your closing remarks tonight. You have 2 minutes as well.
Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate the opportunity to speak about the issues that matter across the Commonwealth when we talk about housing and workforce issues and the real challenges that so many families are facing, particularly when they are endeavoring to provide the very, very best for a loved one with disabilities. Now, as governor, I think it is my job to tell the truth, to be straightforward, and to fix the problems before us. But you can only contend with challenges and hardships and problems when you recognize what they are. So across Virginia, I'm hearing about the issues of continuing rising costs. That's why I released a housing affordability plan that includes components that will ensure that we are not just building more housing, but increasing access to affordable housing across the Commonwealth. That plan is available at affordablevirginia.com. And notably, I also have recognized the incredible impact that the so-called One Big Beautiful Bill will have. And you don't have to take my word for it. You can look at the Kaiser Family Foundation documentation, nonpartisan organization, talking about the impacts on hundreds of thousands of Virginians. And yes, some of the cuts go for individuals where there is a work requirement, increasing the validation of someone's working status. The real problem is here in Virginia, we already have some levels of a work validation requirement, and Virginia has a backlog. We are not in a position to be able to meet what will be the new federal requirement. But this bill isn't just about Medicaid and work requirements. It is also about the provider tax. It is also about supplemental dollars. The impact of this bill on Virginia's healthcare system will be catastrophic. And I have to insist on recognizing that, telling the truth about it. And again, it's not just me saying it, it's literally DMAS saying it's a loss of $26 billion that will come out of our healthcare system. Hospitals will close and safety net hospitals will be forced to lay off providers and nurses and staff. It is a real impact on the ground. It will impact all of us. But for families who rely on Medicaid, it will be particularly catastrophic. And I'm not saying that to scare anyone. I am saying that because if you are going to contend with the realities of governing a state, you have to understand the realities and the impact of terrible legislation that will bring devastation to Virginia's healthcare system. We can only fix or address or try to mitigate the harms of problems we are willing to admit. And so I look forward to serving you as governor, contending with the real impacts of challenges we are facing here in our communities or those thrust upon us from bad policies coming out of Washington. I will always tell you the truth. I will always work tirelessly for you. And I hope to earn your vote. Early voting starts on Friday.
Thank you.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Senator Hashmi, we now invite you to deliver your closing remarks. You have 2 minutes.
Well, I just want to thank everyone again who's participated in this forum, and I especially thank our organizers for bringing us all together. Over the past 6 years, I've really deeply appreciated the collaboration as well as the expertise that so many of you have shared on the issues and the concerns that impact our families. And as your Lieutenant Governor, I look forward to continuing in those collaborative efforts. I just want to highlight one area in particular on which I've already been working, and that is to ensure that protections for our special education services in Virginia continue and are increased and accelerated with good strength. As Chair of Education and Health, I've spent the past 6 months now in preparing legislation to respond to the crisis that we are beginning to see with the dismantling of the U.S. Department of Education under the current administration and the potential loss of civil rights protections for education access for all students, including students with disability. With the collaboration of many stakeholders and advocates, we've been working on legislation that protects IDEA as well as Section 504 in the Virginia Code. You have my full commitment that the issues of the individuals with disability will be a serious priority, and I look forward to working with you and representing you as your next Lieutenant Governor. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator. Mr. Reed, the floor is yours for your closing remarks. You have 2 minutes.
Well, you're great to have had us all here today. This has been interesting to listen to, and I certainly appreciate it. I want to highlight one of the unique things that I bring to the table. I haven't served in the House of Delegates. I haven't served in the state Senate. I'm not a part of the problems that are clearly on display from the leaders of the legislature. This is the reason that I gave up my career and I gave up my paycheck and have worked for a year without any money because I'm worried about Virginia's future. And I don't think that we are being led in the legislature very well. And I've been around state government my entire life since I was a page in the General Assembly, and then watching my own father serve in the House of Delegates. And I think we need leaders who will get into a room together, close the doors without calling the TV station where I used to work, and without calling the newspaper reporters, and without trying to make political points back and forth and create problems so they can extrapolate that out for votes with the next election and try to actually solve problems. And I hope you have heard that mindset and that coming from my heart in my answers to you tonight, because I do think there's some key issues that together we can resolve, that together we can work on and find solutions for. And that's the mindset that I am trying to bring to the Capitol if I'm elected in January. And it's not just rhetoric. I hope you'll go to my website, johnreedforvirginia.com, and look at the very specific, thorough policy proposals that I've developed that address some of the concerns you've expressed tonight. I think they are fresh. I know that they're unique, and I think they will help solve problems for this community and for citizens all across Virginia. And I do hope that if you examine that, I'll earn your vote and your trust during the election this year. And I'd be honored to serve as Lieutenant Governor. I appreciate you having me tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Reed. Now we'll hear the closing remarks from Delegate Jones. You have 2 minutes.
Well, thank you all again for having me. And at the end of the day, this comes down to dignity, opportunity, and fairness. And every Virginian deserves the chance to live, work, and thrive without fear of discrimination, of being left behind, or losing the critical health care that they need. And as Attorney General, I won't just defend the progress we've made with all of my might. I will actively protect and enforce the civil rights of Virginians with disabilities. That means holding institutions accountable when they violate the law, making sure our public spaces and services are accessible, and fighting discrimination wherever it appears, whether it's in the workplace, in schools, or in our criminal justice system. It also means defending access to care. As Abigail said earlier, nearly 300,000 Virginians are at risk of losing Medicaid as a result of the Republicans' big bill. When I was in the General Assembly, I expanded Medicaid access for Virginians. At that point, it was 400,000. Now we're up over 700,000. And I look forward to continuing that work in the courts and alongside Abigail, Ghazala, and all of you, because everyone deserves access to affordable, quality health care. And as Attorney General, I'll work every day to move us forward. Together, we can build a Virginia where our laws, our policies, and our institutions reflect the simple truth that having a disability does not exclude people from being full and equal members of our Commonwealth. And I just want to say thank you again for the opportunity to be here tonight. I'm ready to fight alongside you to make Virginia more accessible, more inclusive, more just and fair for every single one of us. So may God bless you all, and I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful evening.
Thank you very much, Delegate Jones. And finally, Attorney General Miyares, you may now proceed with your closing remarks. You have 2 minutes as well.
Well, it is so great to be with you all. One of the articles of my faith is a Latin term, Imago Dei. I'm not smart enough to speak Latin, but I know what it means. It means image of God. It means every single person I ever meet on this planet has amazing intrinsic value because they're made in the image of their creator. I'm mindful of that as the people's protector of the Attorney General, which means I'm to protect all Virginians, no matter who they are, no matter what their background is. And I've said from the beginning when I took this office that your safety was going to be my mission. Because if we don't have safe communities, nothing else matters. And as I said, when I took in the Attorney General and I took over this job, I said, I'm going to take the politics out of the office. I'm going to make your safety as a Virginian my top priority because no Virginian should ever be looking over their shoulder in fear. So I'm so grateful of the incredible work we have done making Virginia safer. As I've said in my opening remarks, our murder rate was at a 20-year high. Our violent crime rate was at a 30-year high. The highest levels of addiction deaths we've ever seen. Those numbers have gone down, but I'm so proud that earlier this year, I was able to stay in the DEA national headquarters, where they announced that Virginia was not top 10, not top 5. We were the #1 state in the entire country in the drop in addiction deaths, more than double the national average. I think it's a great example of what happens when we work together. And so we're proud of the work we've done. My office has prosecuted and gotten enough fentanyl off the streets that would have taken the lives of 7 million Virginians. So it goes back to what I've said before. Being the people's protector means protecting you and making sure that we have safe communities and make sure protecting your civil rights and your individual dignity from housing discrimination. It means protecting my fellow Virginians but that are having their 504 plan and an IEP. I want to be able to continue my job, and I'm asking you as Virginians to rehire me to continue to protect you and your family because your safety, again, is my #1 priority as Attorney General. I look forward to doing that and continuing to serve you. It is an honor to be with you all tonight. To protect the dignity of every Virginian is the mission that I upheld my first day in office, and I will deal with as long as I'm your Attorney General. Thank you all. God bless you.
Thank you, Attorney General. On behalf of the organizers and our community partners, I want to express our deepest gratitude to each of the candidates and to everyone who joined us tonight. The disability community is a force for change, and together we can ensure that accessibility and inclusion remain at the heart of public policy in Virginia. In the 2022 midterms, people with disabilities in Virginia turned out to vote at the same rate as people without disabilities. This is a powerful reminder that our voice matters and that our community is fully engaged in shaping the future of our Commonwealth. The right to vote is one of the most important tools we have to create change. And when we show up at the ballot box, we drive progress towards equity and justice. As we look ahead, remember that early voting begins on Friday, September 19th. Let us carry forward the energy of tonight's gathering and turn it into action. Together, we can create lasting impact for generations to come. Thank you for being part of 1 in 5, a statewide candidate virtual forum with the disability community, and I hope everyone has a good evening.